I first read The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer about 7 years ago. It was a nice, feel good book. I enjoyed it, but then I put it away and I forgot all about it. I did not apply anything I learned into my life. Then in December 2023, I read The Surrender Experiment, which is Michael Singer's story of how and why he decided to surrender and the amazing magical things that happened in his life as a result of surrendering to life instead of using the preferences of his mind to make decisions. So it's a beautiful story. And then I was so moved by Surrender Experiment because I finally understood what surrender actually means. A lot of spiritual teachers and books talk about the concept of surrender, but it wasn't until I read the Surrender Experiment that I actually understood surrender. Surrender is not giving up. It is not sitting down and doing nothing. It just means that we stop resisting life, and instead of resisting life, we flow with life. And instead of using the preferences of our mind to make decisions and decide the way in which we want to, the direction which we want our life to take, we just surrender to what life is showing us or presenting us and then go with the flow. It's like if you're swimming in a river, it's easier to swim in the direction of the river and just flow with the river. It'll be so easy as opposed to swimming upstream, swimming against the direction of the river. There'll be so much struggle and you'll barely move if you're trying to do that. So surrender is kind of like flowing with the river. And so after I read the Surrender Experiment, I was called to read The Untethered Soul again. And then when I read it the second time, it made way more sense because I had just read the Surrender Experiment just before that. So why it made more sense is because I was able to connect dots between the concepts shared in The Untethered Soul with the life story, the life events of Michael, which are shared in the Surrender Experiment book. So I would read something and then I would go, oh, so that's why he was doing this at this point in his life. So connecting the concepts to the stories and events in his life. So I was able to get The Untethered Soul much, much better, having just read the Surrender Experiment. And then I could not get enough of Michael. So then after I finished The Untethered Soul for the second time, then I read his I believe that's his newest book, Living Untethered, and that goes a lot more into how to apply the concepts of untethered soul into your life. So that's why it's called Living Untethered. So the order in which I would recommend you to read these books would be: number 1, Surrender Experiment; number 2, The Untethered Soul; and number 3 would be Living Untethered. And if you're like me and you want to go further and deeper into his teachings beyond reading his books, he also has a podcast where he shares the talks that he gives at the Temple of the Universe. So let me just tell you a little story here. So after, in 2024, I was so much into Michael Singer's teachings. After I read his 3 books, I decided to go visit him at the Temple of the Universe in Florida, where he gives talks. At that time, it was 3 times a week. And I was fortunate enough to hear 2 of his talks while I was there. And it was just so amazing to be in his company. And I'm so honored that I had that experience, honored and grateful. And I just want to share that this man is so humble. Like, I haven't seen that level of humility and simplicity in, it's very rare to see. And also, Michael, if he wants, he can charge whatever amounts for his talks or for entry to the temple. He can sell retreats and people would happily pay whatever amount he charges for the retreats. But everything is for free. He gives away his talks for free. You can visit the temple for free. And the books are obviously a very minimal cost. So I just wanted to share that. And so if you wanted to go deeper into his teachings, after reading his books. There are some online courses, which I have done one of them, and it's really good. I think it's called Living from a Place of Surrender. But I would recommend you do that after reading the books and maybe after listening to his talks for a while, because it can be so easy to just be in like a consume and input mode, like read this, listen to this, do this course, right? But I think we need to like slow down, pause, and actually take the time to digest the material and apply it little by little in our lives before just moving on. So, what I like to think of it as for myself is to balance input with output. So, I read something in a book or listened to something in a talk, and then I'm just going to try to apply one small change, one small concept practically into my life before moving on. So, I would recommend you do that with Michael's work as just as with anybody else's teachings. And so what I do now is I will sometimes reread his books, and again, I will not try to just finish the book quickly, maybe just read one chapter a day and try to reflect on it, try to digest it, try to let the message really sink in. And I do the same with his talks. So you can find his talks on the Michael Singer podcast, and I would listen to the same talk maybe 5 times, maybe even more, because every time I listen to it, I am going to hear something I didn't hear before, or it's just going to hit me in a different way. And same with reading his books. Each time I reread his books, because I have grown, I'm not the same person, right, since I last read that book. So it's a new me who is reading that book. So I am going to understand that same text in a deeper way, in a different way, from a different angle, maybe see different layers to what is written in the book. So I would recommend you take your time with his books, with his talks, and pause and reflect and actually apply what you're learning, because just reading and just listening is not going to change your life. It's the application, it's actually doing the work that is going to make changes and bring you closer to unconditional joy. I will be making future videos, future episodes on how I do this work, how I apply Michael's teachings into my life. And these are very practical, doable strategies, which I can do and hence you can do as well. So make sure you have subscribed to my channel or my podcast so that you don't miss those future episodes.